Hey everybody, Chris Munson here. I figured I'd talk to you guys a little bit well, about the personal experience of a millennial. At least my personal experience of being a millennial in the millennial generation. So, I figured I'd start with the most basics, with school. Public school happens to be the new, well, not new, but the old indoctrination center, but in general, the new social center. Everything is based around school. For example, my brother, he even went to college. I only did a semester and realized how completely politically motivated most of the classes are, especially with the teachers. So, I figured, well, at least in this case, instead of talking about my home life, I just focused mostly on the school life, which is what largely influenced a lot of my feelings and my thoughts about my own generation. So, without further ado, let's talk about preschool. I remember very little of it, because most of it's just, playing around. You're a kid. But, even then, things are pretty stupid. Whites were inherently racist in that time frame. I can remember that because that's something, whenever I would try to hang out with black kids, and I didn't think about them being black, but they would tell me that we couldn't hang out, and I'd ask them why. Because I'm black. Okay, I would be confused. Because again, when I'm a child, all I'm thinking is, I just want to have friends and play with my friends. But of course, I had to be told that all whites are racist. Well, you're white, so you're racist. We can't have friends. We can't be friends. Anyhow, then there's that WWE crap. I don't remember if that was the name of it at the time, but essentially it's that fake wrestling. That was so popular that kids would only focus on that. That was like drama TV for children and men. That's where everyone saw big titties on live television and a bunch of sweaty dudes beat the crap out of each other and pretend like they actually are fighting. In all actuality, they're fake fighting. Like, well, worse than some stage fights, to be honest. But anyways. So, there's that. They cared more about fake fighting than knowledge or philosophy. So, of course, that's preschool, what it was for me in a nutshell. It's also the reason why I got hurt several times, because kids thought it would be funny to take the smart kid and just chuck him at a vent, which cracked open part of my skull. Yay me. Anyways, elementary school. All whites had slaves. That was a popular thing, I was told by, a lot of people. From blacks to Hispanics, that was a main thing, That's when racism versus whites intensified. I was bullied more often for being white. I remember even one time where I even said that to a kid who was just insulting me, being rude, occasionally smacking me on the back of the head on the bus. And I finally looked back at him and I said, "But you're doing this because I'm white, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah, you punk-ass white racist." That was normal. Anyhow, teachers were mostly minorities and women. So that means most of them were blacks and Hispanics or Asians. But in general, most of them were not white. And most of them were women. Which, in my opinion, influenced a lot of what happened next. Which is teachers normally took sides with girls and minorities. That means if girls decided they want to tease and be mean, they would get away with it. And if they decided they want to get a kid in trouble, then it was really easy. Especially if that kid was a white and a male. When it came to minorities, whenever they bully me, all they had to do to say, "Oh, I wasn't bullying him. He said something racist." That's all they had to do. I'm a racist. I said something racist. A lot of them would just say the N-word and say, "Oh yeah, he said the N-word." Obviously, actually saying the word, while I can't even verbalize that in a video. But anyways, that's just how normal it was for me. Feminist baby boomer mother, that's my mother right there, always took sides against me. Because again, I'm a white male and her father was abusive, so of course, since he was a racist, abusive individual, I must be the same, even though I never, ever grew up talking to that guy. Not once in my life, so there is no influence for that to happen. But hey, don't worry about it. My side never mattered to begin with. TV, radio, and games, all those things were full of violence, anti-whiteness, like anti-white jokes where it's okay to laugh about the crackers, or when the one white guy says "you people" and he's meaning everyone in a group of people, but because there's one black guy there, they immediately say, "What do you mean, you people?" That was the normal thing for me. And of course, everything was over-sexualized. The happy woman in a relationship with a man was always cheating on her husband, or she's married to a rich schmuck who also happens to be like some playboy and has some speedboat where he has like numerous sexual acts. Like it was ridiculous. That's just what my 90s life was like, watching these kinds of things. And then, of course, there was other kids who had older siblings, kind of like I did, who would essentially copy bad habits they would see and then try to act like they were cool. Because, of course, acting like a schmuck with money, not caring about what they say or what they learn, and only about getting laid and all these other things, that's cool. Yeah, see how well that turned out for my generation. Anyhow, middle school. Racism versus whites normalized. Yeah, at that point in time, I got picked on all the time. Even if someone wasn't picking on me, they might be talking about how much they hate white people in front of me, which, of course, they would never think about it, or they'll just look at me and be like, "You understand, right?" So, again, no one thinks about the flip side of that situation. Boys who didn't think about sex all the time, they were just considered gay. Like, if I did not think about sex all the time, like every other guy, then I was gay, even though I would think about other things. I'd think about outside the box, I'd think about history, I'd think about philosophy, things that interested me. Girls only like black and Hispanic guys. That was a cool thing. If you were a girl, white, black, it doesn't matter. If you liked a white guy, no one liked you. You were not cool. But if you liked the black guy, you were cool. All the girls wanted to be like you. Even the girls would start to put their hair into cone rolls because, again, black culture became a thing to embody. And white culture was something that you had to exterminate. Let's see. White boys seen as creeps. Yeah, that was a normality for me. Trying to be honest or nice. That was like, opening a door for someone that was seen as creepy. Saying, "Oh, excuse me. Oh, go ahead." Or "Hello, ladies." Like saying something respectfully. That was creepy, evidently. Teachers would only ever take girls and minority sides. That meant there would be times where it was very obvious that something racist was done to me, or something sexist was done to me, and the teachers just wouldn't care about anything. But if I even retaliated, even in the slightest, like, "Go fuck off," or, something where I would fight back whenever I'm hit, immediately I'm the one that was in trouble. No matter what. Even if I didn't do anything and they just said that I did it anyways, they'd still take their side. Admin was minority women in this point in time, targeted by teachers if I wore a trench coat, because Columbine, that was a typical excuse. "Columbine, you must be having weapons on you because you're white and you're wearing a trench coat." So evidently, racism towards white people was just, again, normal, even though it's seen as a terrible thing to want to pat down someone who dresses up like a gangbanger, like a Blood, or like a Crip, or whatever the heck else. But of course, it's okay towards a white guy. Gay science teacher ignored bullying, victim blamed. As in, the one guy that hated being victim blamed because he's gay was victim blaming the kids in his class because he just didn't care. He just did his job so he can get paid, and he left. That's all he cared about. Fighting back versus bullies equals double the punishment. So that means if you defended yourself, rightly so, physically or verbally, you would get double the punishment. So the whole point was to teach children to not defend themselves. Just accept whatever punishment happens your way, even if you do not deserve it. Whether it be by the administration or by other students, just accept it. Bend over and take it. I was put into a crazy program because, again, I defended myself so much so that they shoved me into a box full of people that were either born to drug addicts, they had emotional disorder. That means they literally could not control their emotions. I knew a kid named Ricky Willingham. This kid had a druggy father, clearly was abused by him a lot, and this kid would just, out of nowhere, just want to clock somebody. And he would. He would beat up on me often. and of course, never get in trouble for it. He was just put in this little program where all of us were treated, at least if you're white, you're treated as racist and dangerous. And in general, everyone in that class were treated like prisoners, including Ricky. But again, he had more lax, laws. I shouldn't say lax laws, lax rules in his favor because everything was about identity politics. If you're white, you just fucked. If you're a guy, you're only somewhat fucked. If you're a black guy, you're only somewhat fucked. If you are a girl and you're not white, whew, you got the highest card of them all. Unless you're Jewish, then of course you got the top card. No one can fuck with you. High school. It was socially accepted racism versus whites. I got picked on. I got joked around about. Even teachers just wouldn't give a shit. Like, someone could, chuck a book at my head. Then, of course, nothing would happen. But if I tried to be like, fuck you, you racist piece of shit, and that wouldn't come from the student. That would come from the teacher. So, again, things were stupid and flipped. Dating was way better than learning. No one cared about learning. Everyone cared about getting in a relationship or having sex. Gangs were a cool thing. If you were not part of a gang, you at least had friends that were in gangs, because that was cool. Or at least you acted like it. Drinking, drugs, and parties were all cool. Nothing about actually excelling in life. Nothing like that was cool. That was just stupid or weird or gay. Homo acceptance equals forced. So that meant, gay straight alliance and all that other stuff. If you wanted protection, you would be gay. Because then the teachers and the administration would have to do something about it. So the only way that anyone would have any kind of special card that was, white and a male, or at least in general they weren't of the other identity politics, if you're gay, you've got one of the top cards. And the teacher's administration would take your side immediately. You can bully a white male unless they're gay. If they're gay, then, well, you done fucked up. Only group accepted was, homosexuals. They accepted everyone except Christians. Because if you're a Christian, then that means you were a bigot, which made no sense. But anyways, anti-Christianity became a fad for the LGBT. That means if you're part of these gay straight alliance and this other stuff, you're most likely anti-Christian. Same thing for feminist girls. They were generally anti-Christian because they thought that if you're a Christian, that means you want to oppress women. And for gays, the obviousness of that scenario. Most Christians did not read the Bible when I grew up. Most of them didn't read half the shit that was in there. Didn't even learn the concept of love thy neighbor, or even love thy enemy for that matter. Most of them would just normally be hateful. And for the dumbest things, too. But they'd be okay with homosexuals, because again, they just didn't read the fucking Bible. College loans were normalized for family problems, so most people knew that their parents had to struggle just to put them in college, but it was normal to do that, to struggle to get into college, or just go into gang violence, or get into the military. Military was advertised and became an escape for people, including myself. That's part of the reason why I joined the Marine Corps, is because I wanted to get out of this bullshit. I thought, oh man, this looks great. These guys in uniform come there. They always look happy. They look like they have a good time. They look like they work out, so that means they have something done with their lives. They just looked all around like someone that felt honored and accepted. So after I joined, I realized that's just part of the sale. You got to sell the contracts. You're not actually there to enjoy your time. You're there to sucker people into joining, kind of like you're at a used car lot and you're trying to sucker someone into a shitty car. Anyways, teachers would only suggest and push for college or military. That was the only two things. I didn't hear anything about trade schools. I didn't hear anything about, go into sports or anything like that. Sure, those things were talked about, but the only two things I was ever pushed into was college or military. So obviously, you know which one I chose. So with all that being said, I could give you a story for every single bullet point on here, but that would literally take hours for me to give you an example for every single thing on here. So if anyone has any questions, You're more than welcome to ask me at the bottom, and I'll explain. Heck, if anyone wants me to explain any single one of these school times in a separate video, by all means, I'll do that. But the point I'm trying to make to everyone here is this is part of the problem. This is normal. Anti-Christianity, normal. Anti-whiteness, normal. You know, if you're gay, that's the only protection you've got if you're white. If you're, if you're black, then of course you got a card in your favor, but also you get fucked over because the only cool route for you is to be a thug. That was a normal thing for the areas that I grew up in. If you weren't a thug, you weren't cool, and you were seen as someone trying to accept quote-unquote whiteness, and then you were almost excommunicated because of that. So again, it was ridiculous. This is the problem. The social aspect of our country is dictated by our schools. This is a major problem that I highly suggest that you, if you live in an area where you can actually affect the school system, affect it. Root these problems out and get rid of it. Because I'll tell you what, your kid will suffer if you go through the school system, at least for where I grew up at, in Northern Virginia. Well, this video is already pretty long as it is, so God bless to you all and good luck.